The gospel of the kingdom is the gospel that brings you under the government of the Spirit. You begin to live by the energy and the life that proceeds from the realm of God. The gospel of the kingdom is a gospel that enslaves you to the will of the king, so that you become an extension of his reality. And the only way men can enter into the reality of that gospel is when lust is tamed. Lust must be tamed. This is what the Great Awakening is all about. So the first level of preparation, which is one of the most significant reasons for priesthood, is the ability to harness the word back to the Christ. Is evangelism by power. Power, not by mental capacity. Power, because you enter into heaven and you can secure verdicts. He said, have dominion. How can a man have dominion? Dominion is the verdict of intimacy. Because the man mingled with God, God spoke and said, have dominion. That's why Psalm 2 verse 8, he said, ask of me, I will give you the heathens for an inheritance, the uttermost part of the earth for a possession. You ask for the nations before you preach to them. You can't preach to a nation that you have not asked for in prayer. Isaiah chapter 2 verse 2, he said, in the last days the house of God, remember Jesus said, my house shall be called the house of prayer. The house of God shall be on the mountain of God. It shall be exalted above all hills and all mountains. And he said, men of all nations shall say, let us go to the house of God, that he may teach us his ways. For out of Zion proceeds the law. So they are returning back to the law of God. The gospel of the kingdom is the unveiling of the laws of God back to a world ruled by iniquity. And the only way that happens is when men ascend the mountains of God. This is why you are not a preacher now unless you are first of all an intercessor. A lot of people argue scriptures because they think it's an intellectual enterprise. You have no voice. People will be hearing your message and fornicating. They will be hearing your message and drinking and say, wow, this man's a big preacher. This man's a big preach. Because there is no power. There is never a time where the world was redeemed from iniquity without prayer. The Bible said in Genesis chapter 4 verse 25, God gave another seed to Abraham in the place of Abel that Cain slew, and his name was called Seth. And he said Seth had a seed and he called him Enosh. And he said then men began to call upon the name of the Lord. Redemption of a world of iniquity begins when man begins to call on the name of the Lord. Without intercession, there is no gospel in the last day. The gospel in the last day is not Bible exegesis, it is power. It is power. Power that is born out of prayer.